Hello and welcome to another micro moment right here at Rose Red Homestead, where today I'm going to give just a very brief review of the Cuisinart bread machine. And this comes from a person who is not an expert at using bread machines. We purchased this almost exactly 2 months ago, and I have been using it quite extensively as I have done the research and practiced and tested recipes for the bread book that I am going to be publishing at the end of April. But I have learned so much about bread machines because of this little machine that I wanted to share with you my review of what I like and the one thing I don't like about this particular machine. Now, this is by Cuisinart. It is stainless steel, which I really love. It's very light and very compact. And I don't keep it out on my counter. I don't like a lot of things on my counter. And we have just recently had some new storage shelves installed. And so it goes over in our new storage center until the time that I'm ready to use it. But I want to talk just a little bit about its features and what I have done with it and tell you my opinion on those things. So, as I said, while I'm a very experienced bread baker with over 60 years experience making bread, always in the kitchen oven, always doing a lot of the kneading and hand mixing myself, and sometimes using a stand mixer, this was a horse of a different color. And it took a little bit of adjusting for me to trust, I guess, you would need to say, before I could really trust this machine and have complete confidence in the outcome. And so let's just go over some of the features of the machine. It comes with this little booklet. This is the instruction side, and then you flip it over, and that's the recipe side. In the booklet of instructions, it's well written. It is sometimes, these instruction books are really difficult to understand because they're written with someone from a different language who phrases things differently. But this one is very clear. And it talks about the parts and the features and gives a lot of really good information. This machine actually could take the place of a stand mixer for doing bread. And it's much less expensive. We now do have this in our Amazon store, both on Rose Red side and also on the Trail Grazers side, because I can completely recommend this after my experience being such a novice, and yet the learning curve was accomplished pretty quickly. You can use a delay start time on this one so that you can put the ingredients in, delay start, and have it do its thing during the middle of the night while you are sleeping, and you can wake up to nice hot bread. Now, I have not done that yet, but it sounds like a really fun thing to be able to do. And then right up here on the top, it lists all of these programs, and there are 12 different programs, from white bread to wheat bread to gluten-free bread. You can even do cakes and jams. It has a dough program. I have done my own pizza dough recipe in here with the dough program, and it turns out just fine. So it mixes and kneads, and then it will do a first rise, and then the program is over. You pull the dough out, and then you can finish the pizza. So let's take a quick look at the features, and then we'll talk about some of the things that I have done with this. So this has a screen on the front that tells you where it is in a given program. It also tells you how much time remains in whatever program that you have. And then it has buttons where you select the program and the color of the crust. And then over here, what size of a loaf. You can do a 1 pound loaf, a 1.5 pound loaf, or a 2 pound loaf. I've not ever done a 2 pound loaf in here because my 1.5 pound loaves that I do generally sometimes rise up almost to the glass. And so it makes me nervous trying to do a 2 pound loaf. And then here is the stop and start. And this would also be pause in the middle if you need to pause it for anything. So here is the bread baking pan. And this will hold a 1 pound loaf, a 1.5 pounds, or a 2 pound loaf. And then if you look on the inside, so that paddle in the bottom is what does everything. It mixes, it kneads, and then if you leave it in there, it gets baked in the loaf of bread. So you can also remove the paddle. At a certain point in the process, it will give you a cue. It will ding 10 times and tell you that you can remove the paddle. So you have to pause the machine, take the dough out, remove the paddle, reshape the dough, put it back in, and then let it have its final rise, and then the bake. So that's the basic setup for the machine. It is very simple, and it is very, very intuitive. I was quite nervous when I first started. I tried the white bread recipe first of all, and I'm going to show you a picture of that first loaf of bread. So here it is. I think it turned out really great, and it was very tasty. We really quite enjoyed it. And so I have baked, I don't know, my goodness sake, between 10 and 20 different loaves of bread in this bread machine, and I have found it to be pretty wonderful. Now, one of the things that I really like is that at first I felt really restricted to exactly the recipes that were in here. Now, let me read you some of these recipes. Basic white, oatmeal bread, cinnamon swirl, rye, jalapeno cheddar bread, French bread, rustic Italian, on and on and on. Then there's whole wheat programs, there's sweet programs, and it gives challah loaf, brioche, panettone, chocolate cherry loaf, and then there's gluten-free. Now, we don't have dietary needs in our household to do gluten-free, but because we have a lot of viewers that need gluten-free, I have done a little bit of research on that and presented at least one video previously. And I tried the gluten-free recipes out in here, and they taste really good along the lines of gluten-free bread and how that tastes. They hold up, they're sturdy, they're quite good, and they're also purple. I'm not kidding. Here's a picture. So you can see the purple cast, and that is because all of their gluten-free recipes call for psyllium husk powder, which turns the dough purple gray. So here is the psyllium husk powder. The dough is white until it bakes, and then after it bakes, it's purple, as you saw in the picture. But if you add lactic acid, a fourth of a teaspoon of lactic acid, per tablespoon of the psyllium powder, it is supposed to clear up that purple color. Well, here's how much clearing up it did when I added the lactic acid. So you can see that it was a little bit better, but not a whole lot. So the one thing that I don't like about this is only in the recipe section, and that is the use of psyllium powder. Those of you that are gluten-free probably have a remedy for that, or perhaps you might use something else like xanthan gum or something else to replace the psyllium husk powder. So that's the only downside. Now, when I started, I was so constrained to follow everything just exactly right, just exactly as described in the recipe book. But once I got my feet on the ground and started really gaining more experience, I began to experiment. And I took some of their basic recipes and then I adjusted them based on other recipes that I found out on the internet and from some other sources that I trust. And I began to make some of my own adjustments, and many of these are in the bread book that is going to be coming. But I want to show you some of the remainder pieces of the loaves that we have, because we eat it as soon as it comes out. So this is what is left of a loaf of the cinnamon raisin bread. Now, this is partly the recipe in the book, and it is partly my own recipe and my own adjustments. And let me tell you, this makes phenomenal French toast. We really love it. And then one of the things that I did, and I learned this from our community when I said, I posted 2 months ago, would you like to have some videos on bread makers? And boy, we were just hit with a wave of, yes, please do it, please do it. And some people said, I don't let it do the final proofing or the baking. I take it out and shape it myself and then bake it in my own oven. And so one of the things that I did was, and this is what is left of a loaf of French bread, and it came out just beautifully. I selected the dough program, and the dough program goes up to a certain point right before the final proofing, and then it stops. And I pulled this out, shaped it the way I wanted it, and baked it in my own oven. But the mixing and the first kneading were done in the bread maker. This last loaf of bread was one that we did for a video for our other channel. This was based on their, let's see, what do they call it? I think that they call it jalapeno cheddar bread. Jim and I don't care for jalapenos. I was looking for a little bit of different recipe. I wanted to package it in a jar so that all I had to do was just dump the stuff in and then be able to bake the loaf of bread for when we take our trailer out. And I've just done a video on that very thing, and this was the loaf that we baked. And I will put the link to that video. It is over on Trail Grazers so that you can see us do this whole loaf. But this turned out to be fantastic. And in this particular recipe, I used freeze-dried cheddar cheese and freeze-dried green chilies and not jalapenos. Jim and I don't like jalapenos. So that's some of the experimenting that I have done with this bread machine. And I am loving what I can do with this bread machine. Now, will it take the place of my regular bread baking? No, it won't. But it has so many applications for our life, not only in our trailer when we go out on vacations, but also when I'm in a big hurry and I just want to dump and then let the machine do the thing and not have to use my time and attention to oversee it. This is a great machine. And the thing that I really like about it is that it's so easy and so intuitive. And I also like it because I don't have to adhere so completely to the rigidity of something that doesn't have any flexibility. I can stop it whenever I want, pull out that dough, finish it off by doing my own kneading and baking in the oven as well. And so it is a wonderful addition to our kitchen and something that we are really enjoying. So I thought you might like to have an update on not just my journey to doing bread machine bread, but also just a little review on the one that I selected. This Cuisinart is in the middle range of price for bread makers. It's a little bit over $100, far cheaper than the ones that are upward of $400. There are many advantages to the more expensive kind. Many of you love the ZO, and a long Japanese name. Many of you reported how much you love that and that would take the place of your regular bread making. I'm not there yet. This is a wonderful interim step for me, and I don't think I'm going to go beyond this one. I think that this is going to be it for me. I'm very satisfied. So that concludes this quick review. Hope you have found it helpful. Thanks, and we will see you at our next micro moment.